last night, a brief thing, you called in because there was some kind of mix-up and you couldn't make it yesterday, but you're here now, so we want to pick up kind of from where we left off and not cover the same grounds. We talked about UFOs and quite a few things last night.
You covered a lot of things. You got into the beginning of the trilateral list. You got a little bit into the line of child murders. You got into the a little bit about UFOs, a little bit about women. So you covered a lot as it was. But one thing's for sure, we couldn't get any feedback from the audience.
That's
and
true.
I'd love to get into that because I'm sure with the kind of controversial things you asked me and a really mundane way I answered them, I know nobody was kind of rocking in their beds and wondering what was happening. So maybe we'll call in.
Okay, we'll give them the opportunity to do that. Let's give them a little bit more to think about. I see one of your topics is the electronic diseases. Mm-hmm. And that interests me because I worked with a brother for the city of Atlanta, and he did a study one time on the effect of radar dishes and all that kind of stuff on people. Mm-hmm. And I was amazed. I didn't know, all of the things that it caused to go wrong. And now we're surrounded by electronic devices, electronic security, electronic this, electronic that, all in our houses. What kind of diseases,
Well, that's the whole thing, and in fact, I would love to, I'm a researcher too. That's where it starts out. I start out researching a subject, and then I just get involved with it, and because of knowing so many people, they feed me things, and then, it goes on. But electronic diseases, one of the major channels, of course, I won't even go into all of that, had a special on it for a while. They didn't begin to carry it far enough. What they're finding out is that we live in a sea of electromagnetism. The planet is a creature, a live creature, I would say, that has just electromagnetic fields. They have what they call grid fields. Mm-hmm. Energy is flowing from the Earth to the Earth. Every time you see lightning, of course, it's a discharge either from a positive passing cloud, which then pulls negative energy up, or vice versa, a negative charge out to a negative cloud up from a positive ground. We live in a sea of energy, and when we have planes flying through the air, we have radio stations broadcasting, we have TV stations broadcasting, we have microwave ovens, we have refrigerators, which people take, inconsequentially because every home has one. But you have coils in the back there again, and you have refrigerating units using sometimes, again, Freon, per se. Anytime you have a microwave oven in your home or in your kitchen, and you set it anywhere within 20 feet of a refrigerator with those with the Freon flowing through again, there's a jump. And that energy bleeds off into that, gets into the ice making, into the water making. Again, you eat it, you drink it. The same thing with microwaves, of course. The reason why they cook so much is because they use sound, and they speed up the rate of sound. Well, sound, of course, then fries these foods, whatever it is, from the inside out. And, of course, it fills them with radiation right there. They had a big scandal about microwave ovens before they released it, and the companies that they did releasing, they said that they'd got it down to a plus 2 factor, which meant they didn't stop it entirely, but it was a negative type of a thing. It wouldn't be too harmful, so they said. But they have given counts on foods that have been microwaved for rad units, and you can actually count the rad units in microwave foods. So, it goes on and on. Or you pick up a telephone.
I've been telling my friends not to eat their food.
I take those microwave ovens away. They're not good. It's not good eating that food from it. If that was just the one thing, and our body's immune systems could fight it, great. But then we get the common telephone, which we always use. Now, that's supposed to be very good. And then we get the alarm clock. Okay, well, I do too. But I'm just saying, again, that's why I say that the human system must be very strong. We got the alarm clock that goes off again, especially if it's electric. Well, all of these things plug right into what? Wall units. All of these go to a common pole or ground. The energy jumps past that, and it's just broken down either with a transformer or with a built-in circuit breaker, and this is the only thing that stops these pulses from coming right into you. So you have constantly energy flows. Well, where you have two of these energy lines crossing anywhere, then you get something that's released that can be radioactive or so. Worse than that, you get along the highways and byways these big overhead tension wires. You have, I've doing a lot of driving on the highways, and you have all of these lines that are coming into power stations and power grids. Well, there's a field of energy around that when your car passes through it, and in fact, if you want to note something, get near one of them, go under one of them, and watch the little woodpecker-like sound that hit the top of your car or your van or so on like that. Well, that is actually electromagnetic energy that is not stopping at the hood of your car. It's entering into your body, okay? And if you notice sometimes jumping around, you pass by a TV set. If it doesn't have a good ground on it or so, you see the picture wave, okay? That's because it's bleeding off of you. You can take on a phone that's kind of dead or anything with the battery dead, hold it for a while, and the sound will come up. Why? Because it's working through your electromagnetic field. So as I say, it's just a constant thing. We're bombarded constantly by electromagnetic frequencies. We don't even begin to understand how that accumulates in the body, how potentially is very disruptive to the neuron centers of the brain, can short circuit, and they've even found now, they've made movies to kind of show this, but people don't think that it can jump past the movie stage, where there's certain sensitive and so that people can be programmed, whereas a telephone call or subliminal on a TV set can set you off to do things you don't even remember. And somebody says, oh, not me. They've proven you can actually be hypnotized by watching TV, and that's why in many cases they have experimented. People will go to sleep watching TV purposely because they will give a certain metric beat or a certain known beat that matches either the heart rate or some alpha stage that the brain will get into, and pretty soon you're mesmerized. They had things in, I'm still talking about electronic diseases, but I'm kind of shifting over to subliminals. They have had things in the movies where certain tracks in movies, this one that everybody freaked out over, I can't think now can't think of the name of this one now, The Exorcist. Exorcist 1, they tried new techniques. And there was a whole subliminal scene there again where this girl is vomiting up and so on and so forth again, where they said again, be afraid, where they said, this is ghastly. And before the scene came in, they had them peek. Everybody responded pretty much the same way. They had an 85 response unit for the people that just went berserk off of it. That's why the movie sold. And in fact, the guy that was part of that was proven as part of the Illuminati, the director of that daggone movie. So it just goes on and on and on. But electronic diseases simply means that we have no way of understanding how to take radiation out of our bodies. There are certain herbs and things that can help that. We don't even know how to set up fields, even using basic things as some plants that have deep roots to pull that radiation down, putting that between your TV set and yourself. But other than that, we're exposed to all kind of things, and the end result is with AIDS and cancer and the rest that we get kind of sick and don't even know that one of our attacks might be electronic diseases.
Serious thing. I notice the thing that happens to me a lot is when I'm driving and I go beneath a street light, sometimes they go out.
Oh?
A lot.
That's heavy. Huh? You got some psychic power going there, huh? You can't say it's a car.
Okay.
Other cars don't go out when they go in the street light.
All right, don't start it, y'all. We have a house full of people down here. We have Brother Bobby Hemmitt, y'all's favorite. Brother Bobby, Brother Emiola, Brother David, Nana, Mother, Brother O.T., and Brother Henry. We got a full house down here. So, and we're going to open up and have you in here in just a moment. We're going to open up the phone lines. I see you do a thing also called And Nothing But the Truth. Now, what's that? That got my attention.
Well, in the great halls of jurisprudence, when you go to court, they say you hold your hand, and then you put one hand on the Bible, another hand up, and promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Right.
And, that's interesting, too, but I'm going to be nice about that. But whatever. Nothing but the truth is the facts, the truth behind some of the things that we've lived with. Christopher Columbus discovering America. And I have a lecture saying there was no person as Christopher Columbus. And by name, there wasn't. It was a different name. He never got to America, landed in the Bahamas. He didn't discover anybody who already had a community. They've been called Indians, and I've taught at the American Indian. I didn't teach, I've lectured at the American Indian Center. And I told them, you're not Indians. I said, do you even know who you are? And it took one of the wise men to come in there to get the guys off of me again on my second trip back. Then, of course, he did have me back again. He says, you're not. There are three names for them, Algonquins, Gatamans, and the third one I won't say because it's deep research that gave it to me. But they're not Indians. That's another one. We have the thing of the little bighorn and custard, so on and so forth. They told that, of course, they keep rewriting that he was trying to save one of his other commanders, rather than the fact he was a big egotistical nut that got caught up in the flack there again. They have another one about, what is it again, this guy's charge up San Juan Hill. Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders. Well, what they didn't say was the 8th and 9th Cavalry, the Buffalo Soldiers, that got him off that hill. And those were the black guys that had to come in there and fought for a day and a half to get him off. At the end of it, the big statement he made was that they can drink from our canteens anytime. So I guess that was their, 3 months later, it was the fact that, well, they were there, but it was their white commander that made them do it. Later on, well, the day was theirs anyway, the victory was theirs, and they just happened to show up. This was a year later. So it shows, again, we still think of Teddy Roosevelt as having gone up there. What happened was that the Mexican that tricked him into charging up this hill, they had a whole division of men in the surrounding trees and stuff, and they pinned them to that hill and would have slaughtered them if it had not been for the 8th and 9th Cavalry Buffalo Soldiers. We hear about the Chicago fire, I'm just giving some parts of that lecture. I won't give all of them. But that was never told correctly. You hear about Mrs. O'Leary's cow over in DeKoven Street, and, the fire goes on from there, wipes out Chicago. Well, it turned out that the fire went into 22 states because it had been a dry season and a big wind, a sirocco came over the Rocky Mountains, came across into Minnesota, the Dakotas, took a left-hand turn, went up to Illinois, Indiana, went into Canada, went all the way past Baffin Bay, went into over to, I can't think of that little island off the coast of Canada now, but then even went over to Japan. And if you can check the date corollaries per se, you'll find that there was fires, earthquakes, and everything happening during that 2-day period of time. There's a place out there in Wisconsin, I'm doing this all from memory, but there's a town there, and they even have a commemorative stone that they etched in there where water there, to probably come back to me later, the waters begin to boil in this little place in Wisconsin. The people also felt a kind of a whirlwind coming in, so they ran to the waters, and the waters began to boil. The homes were being lifted up and burst in the air into flame, and all of this, and we talk about still Chicago, and Illinois is the only place that it happened. So there's another thing everybody thinks that they understand, and they still call it the Chicago fire. They should have called it the Western Hemisphere Holocaust of our planet. And obviously there was a book called Ragnarok that came out there, written by Donnelly, one of the congressmen at the time, and he claimed that the Earth passed through the tail of the comet, Biela's comet, which didn't make the rounds at that time. But either way, here are some things that we all think we understand. There's a whole different story to it, and it goes on and on and on. Call it nothing but the truth. Hear the real side of the story and not the foolishness.
Interesting. Well, we need to take a little pause for the calls right here. We can be right forward with Dr. Blair, and then we're going to open up the phone lines in about 15 minutes, so hold tight. WRFG Atlanta. We're interviewing Dr. Delbert Blair. We're going to get back forward with that, but we want to remind you that Dr. Blair will be speaking live on Sunday, 3 o'clock p.m. at the Florence Jackson Academy. Florence Jackson is located at 1581 Fairburn Road, Southwest. That number at Florence Jackson is 344-1030. That's 344-1030. The number at Black Media is 756-9658. That's 756-9658. That's Dr. Delbert Blair speaking on Sunday, 3 o'clock p.m. on women and I think fourth encounters, close encounters of the fourth kind. Get that right. All right. Okay. Before we move any further here, because we're getting ready to go out a bit here, I want to remind you that opinions expressed here on Round Midnight, which airs from now until 1 o'clock a.m., do not necessarily represent the opinions of Radio Free Georgia Broadcasting Incorporated, its staff, or volunteers. Again, this program, which airs from now until 1 o'clock a.m., may contain opinions which do not necessarily represent the opinions of Radio Free Georgia Broadcasting Incorporated, its staff, or volunteers. Now, Dr. Blair. Our time is moving on, so we're going to say, I'm going to ask my question, and then we'll open up the Airlines. I think Brother Bobby has a question, Brother David has a question, a lot of people have questions, and I'm sure you all do too. So we're just going to open up the question for the rest of this thing here. All right. I want to know, and a lot of people want to know, as we read and study metaphysical things, the term Sothis or Sirius keeps coming up. It seems like a very important part in everything that's going on.
Oh, you said solstice or Sirius?
Sothis is from what I can tell, is what the ancient Corinthians called this planet.
Oh, okay.
And Sirius is what, I guess the Greeks or somebody named it.
Okay.
And it's A and B or something like that.
Okay. Well, in the star maps, the astronomical maps, I always honor astrology because astronomy actually comes from astrology, as little as we're not told that. They have what they call Canis Major and Canis Minor, which they refer to as the dog stars. The dog stars are part of a combination of a constellation known as Sirius. And the ancient Kemetic people, the ancient Mesopotamian Egyptian people, had a very serious, quote unquote, look at astronomy, which they didn't call astronomy, they called astrology. They said that the stars and the electromagnetic fields from the stars impel, but they do not compel. And that the energies that constantly stream into planets, such as Terra, one of the other names for our Earth, and Shan, another name for our Earth, had a direct result from what was due for what was influencing almost 4 months out of the year, beams of energy that came directly from Sirius. No other constellation had such a total influence for such a long time. Usually their cyclic periods would go at the end of, say, a month, or they would always change with the autumnal or vernal solstice. They also, with all their understanding of astrology, had two stars or two constellations that they really were respectful of. One, they said, was Orion, which they called Sahu the Foolish, or also the Hunter, and the other was, again, Sirius, the dog stars. Now, they claim that the souls of man, progressing from our solar system, and especially those that made their tenure here on Terra, would be influenced greatly if they could make themselves journey, because they believed in reincarnation, and be reincarnated on Sirius. What is very interesting is that we find a lot of negative history about the Pleiadian. And more or less, since the Pleiadian is such a large group of stars, the system in there called Orion. There's a story that says that a main planet there called Tyrantor, from which we get our word tyrant, at one time spread to some 65 solar systems, which was under their control. And that the main planet started off by, as computers began to do the work for people and people had more time, the whole planet, Tyrantor, became just a huge supercomputer, if you would. And the negativity of this supercomputer began to control the minds of people in that group, and to a large portion of the Pleiadian area of Orion were under mind control, and doing very vicious things. They also said that the people that came from Sirius, in many cases, had ancestors to incarnate here, and that there was a kind of a soul lock together with the progression of these people as they tried to get themselves away and extricate themselves from the brutal history of Earth when they contacted humans and when they contacted what was called the laggards. And I'm not going to give all that away because I want people to come out to the lectures, but that's the term, the laggards. When we look at the mummifications that were found not only throughout Egypt, but in other parts of Africa, in Miro, at Diolio, there's another one that's not coming to my mind now. We have found mummified figures of people 3.5 inches tall, some of them even cyclopean, because they had only one eye, and the skulls showed that there was only one formation for an eye, all the way to tibia and femur bones that were sometimes 13 feet long. Now, you can imagine what a 13-foot-long tibia or femur would make a person using that as just part of the leg bone. So the story that there were giants in the earth, and the giants walked the earth, and that the Atlans and Titans that came supposedly from Uranus, brought here by Martians, and this is how some of these stories read, shows that these people not only believed in there being life in our solar system, but that there being that type of life that was either extricated and made genetically by scientists in laboratories here or were brought by other people. Now, as much as folks are laughing, you'll find now that research is showing that NASA, on many of its probes, even the Apollo 15 mission, found out that we had a 10th planet, They know that there are 12 planets in our system, not 9, and they're just not really releasing that. They even have pictures from one of the planets that one of the satellites, orbiting satellites, took. Back to the question that you asked, I put that on as a background. The story seems to be that the overseer of man, the ones that tries to get man, to earth man, not human, to understand who he is and to return and to fulfill some of the things that have gone on here and make it right, is constantly trying to impression the people who have souls, the people who have supposedly this bloodline. And I think one of the most positive proofs of that are the Dogon people. In South Africa, you have a cliff-dwelling people who have a knowledge of astronomy far beyond what Lowenwalk, who they attribute the telescope to in the 17th century, the Dutchman. Long before this, these people have understood terminology. The fact that they say that they want to go to the dogs, and we use the term going to the dogs, simply that's what they said. If they lived right, and they were right, that their souls would migrate to Canis Major, Canis Minor, the dog stars. They even knew that the main star there had a companion which caused perturbations. They have an elongated orbit, which means, again, something is affecting this big star cluster, because it's another thing almost as powerful. And they even said they had a name for it. They called it Sogolu. And they said it was made of metal. Now, why would a people backward, supposedly savage, dumb, ignorant people understand about metallurgy, understand about orbital path of distant constellations and binary star systems, again, when the telescopes that the Dutchmen there couldn't even show it? So it shows again that in Africa, that amongst these people has been a story that has been handed down for so long that they take it as a way of life. It is just now the discoverers who find this amazing, and as soon as they discover something, they hide it. And they begin to try and denigrate and degrade these people for their consciousness. Story seems to be that Sirius is our benefactor and savior, and the ones we have to look out seems to come from Orion or the Pleiadian group.
No, because see, this is, okay. So it's Orions and the Pleiadians. So the Seven Sisters, is that Pleiades too?
Yes, and also, too, the Seven Hills of Rome, and also they have a term called the Kima. If you would take a star map and put the symbols and the flag symbols that different countries use, you will find that they fall over to the vibrations of certain star maps. For instance, the Great Bear. And the Great Bear, when you put that over Russia, then you have other things to fall in line. You have the Condor. They have a song, Condor Paso, which had met the flying condor, falls over one of the constellations again that supposedly looks like a condor. The eagle, Saquila, which is again supposedly the symbol for the United States. And the eagle is a terrible predator, vicious,